everybody. So in this video I wanted to discuss some of my personal third eye experiences because I know a lot of people who search up this topic, they want to explore this topic, they're very interested in hearing, I guess you could say the testimonials, the narrations of, what another person has gone through, what another person, has come to understand, what they feel, and I definitely want to cover that in this video, and I also want to talk about some techniques that help me to not only, have my third eye open, but how to open it back up when it shuts. Because like any chakra, things get out of balance. It'll shut down. Just like sometimes, you'll have a blockage in a different chakra in a different area, and you'll notice a different system error going on in your personal field as well. So, we're going to talk about opening, maintenance, but first I want to give you some, just share some stories, share some testimonials and things like that from my personal experience. Again, I'm not going to make this all culty on you. I will admit, the ability to perceive things with the naked eye did not come to me right away. No. What opened up for me first, see, this is a unique personal experience for all of you, everyone. What happened for me first was definitely more of the access to the dream side of things as well as the clairaudience side of things. So the ability to acquire that information in ways that were not necessarily, again, naked eye oriented. Clairaudience has always been kind of interesting because we have a mind's eye, we also have the mind's voice. Alright, there definitely have been experiences where I would, in my own voice, it's not, it wasn't anything creepy spooky, though there were times, where I would actually hear, in a sense, or get a narration from my higher self, I guess you could say, or from my higher awareness of exactly what was going on. If there is an energy shift in the room, if there is a mood shift in a room, I can actually read that quite well. I even find out the stimulus for that shift in the room. Okay, if, say, we had a group of friends, usually, I'm fairly energetically sensitive anyway, but in a case where, say, a person just shuts down, for no conceivable external reason, they just shut down. That energy is felt, and most people will feel that. We're not, again, we're all very spiritual and psychic people. We all have these gifts. But for myself, in my own unique way, I would be able to actually sort of just observe that, open up my mind, bring myself in, again, practice that mindful awareness, become receptive, and actually get the tool, get the understanding of, well, why has this person done that? Without them saying anything. And not in an egotistical, arrogant kind of way. Not in the, well, I know this because I'm so enlightened. People who talk like that. And I can kind of actually even trace it back to, who said it, what was going on. I've also had experiences on the level of psychometry, where, if you don't know what psychometry is the ability to read the energy or the information that is deposited into a physical object. And so, say I had this candle holder here, I would be able to actually read, well, what is the energy in there? Is it, is it energy that is, positive? Is it energy that's a bit maligned or imbalanced? I might be able to pick up information from the person who actually handled it, and maybe even perceive, again, almost the way I would recollect a memory. I would be able to perceive images, or perhaps even entire scenes of what was the experience of this candle holder. Okay, so that's another way that the third eye could make itself work. It wasn't until I was actually sufficiently trained on my own path, on my own personal spiritual path, that I began to be able to perceive things. Yes, I've seen spirits, I have seen orbs with my naked eye. I actually see orbs quite a bit, or even, even spiritual presences or silhouettes and things like that when I'm out on my nightly walks. You definitely do develop those things. You need to also understand that I am practice all the time. I am in practice all the time. And this has also been nurtured by the flavor of my spiritual practice, my spiritual path. I work a lot with energy manually. I work with people doing energy healings. I do readings, I practice a lot of divination. So of course that is the I guess you could say the part of the muscle that gets the strongest, if that makes sense. That is the vibration that energy takes on. If you don't do anything with that, once you get the access, or even before you get the access, then it doesn't really have an opportunity to take shape for you. And so again, like in the first video, I would highly recommend, making sure you're putting yourself in a situation where you can start to experience these things. Bring all your chakras into balance as best you can, get those things under control, and then put yourself in experiences where, again, you are practicing your meditation, you're practicing your mindful awareness, you're able to move and focus your consciousness through your focus, okay? And what that basically means, just as a basic training exercise, let's take this holder again, the candle holder again, and I've got this in my right hand. Take all of my focus, and just put it onto the experience of holding the candle. Observing the smoothness of the holder itself, maybe feeling the little ridges, the little crescent moon shapes, focusing on whether it's warm or it's cold, the temperature change of it being held in my hand, to the exclusivity of all other thoughts. And what's interesting on a physiological level and on a psychological level is that this can also, again, bring back that presence of mind, because the brain can't hold on to a multitask for very long. It can multitask with one or two things for a fairly decent amount of time, but the overstimulation that we go through right now, which is our biggest problem, when it comes to, well, a lot more, but, the third eye, what this does is it brings the brain back under control. It can't have a panic attack and do mindfulness at the same time. It can't have a worry session. It can't be focused on that Facebook post and all of its attention in one place at one time. And so it's very important to be able to do that. And that'll actually help you open up your, other gifts that you might have in there as well. Diet is important, but I don't want dieting to be the crutch. I've noticed that for a lot of folks, it's either hallucinogenic drugs or dieting that has become the crutch of the third eye. And I will tell you right now that those can be helpful tools. I'm not gonna lie, they can be helpful tools, but what you want to be careful of is not to become reliant on those things. Many shamanic practices, especially in Mexico, southern Arizona, or if you go into South America, many shamanic practitioners, they did not go and take hallucinogenic drugs constantly. There are rites, there are spiritual passages that are sacred to these tools and sacred to these things, whether it's mushrooms, ayahuasca, whatever. They were not doing it more than 3 or 4 times in a lifetime. Forget about doing it as much as it's done. And you know what, honestly, a lot of those people still got further along and they didn't rely on it. So if you are in a place where you feel safe and you are responsible and in the presence and in a situation where everything is under control, where we're not going to go into what I can sometimes consider the spiritual spiral, where a lot of chaos will happen, or again, maybe an emotional situation or a psychological situation is not bridled, then, if you're okay and you want to have that experience, I'm not going to say don't have that experience, but don't let it become your crutch and your only means of actually having that experience. It's, you're going on a tour of a spiritual experience. You're going to the front gate, the Disneyland of the spiritual experience there. Diet. In the first video, I discussed the benefits of limiting your diet from things that are processed and toxic, absolutely. We also want to make sure that when we are working on our third eye, that we're staying with foods that are light. Alright, cutting out really heavy meats, really heavy starches, for that period, and then, enjoying them in moderation is important. I myself have cut red meat out of my diet. I do not actually eat a lot of meat, period. I would pretty much, actually I would say that I'm a pescatarian normally, with the exception of maybe, organic chicken every once in a while, but for the most part I stick to very light meats. fish, shellfish, and not only for the nutritional benefits that they have for the brain and brain health, but also for the fact that I know that my body is not going to divert a lot of available energy and a lot of available physical processes to digesting heavy foods. And that's one of the things that's very important to understand, is that, you know, if the body is preoccupied doing something else, it can make it very difficult to actually shift that focus and actually have that available energy. That being said, when the body is doing something else, such as physically healing, it might not be a good time. Or if it has a pain response, it's probably not a good time. If you're ill, if you are recovering from an injury, you know, do not raise your hopes and your expectations until you can get into a place where there is again a point of balance. And obviously, if we're feeling ill or something like that is going on, we can have fun trying to heal another part of our body, which is totally, again, training in that mindfulness and that energy sensitivity, which needs to be happening. When it comes to things that we put in our body, you know, whether it's because we've developed a habit or we do it as an elective, okay? So when you look at things like caffeine, tobacco, alcohol, these things will slow your growth, but they will not condemn it or halt it. And I'll say that from personal experience, as somebody who currently smokes cigarettes and currently drinks probably more caffeine than he should. This has impeded my progress. You know, I've been working on my third eye, opening it, you know, nurturing it for as long as since about 1999, so, you know, about 16 years. And when I compare my progress with, you know, friends and associates that have been doing it for just as long, I know I could be further along. But my body is processed on, you know, on healing its lungs, you know, or if I'm over-caffeinated, I can't quiet the mind, so it's important to be very mindful of what you're doing there. Yes, of course, everything in moderation can be perfectly fine. Let's respect each other's intelligence. But I do think that it's important to understand what the physical body can do and divert, you know, when it's actually being put through these experiences, such as with caffeine or tobacco. I certainly don't recommend alcohol for this. Alcohol actually resonates with a different part of the body, definitely more of a lower chakra, not worse, but lower chakra, sacral chakra, root chakra energy that can, you know, the energy is just going to be down there. It's not going to be able to rise up and raise. You know, even if a person, you know, would work really hard to overcompensate for that, it's not necessarily as easy to do. The body can compensate with the energies, even if one is smoking cigarettes or, you know, or smoking marijuana or, you know, or drinking coffee. The body can kind of cope and work with that with exercise, whereas with alcohol, it does not. That's important to understand on a physiological perspective, on a physiological and psychological perspective. And this can also segue into other practices that we need to also understand from a developmental perspective. One of the things that a person should absolutely not do when it comes to going into a third eye experience or trying to nurture a third eye experience or facilitate a third eye experience is to go in with a cultured expectation. And a cultured expectation can come from our conditioning, whether it's our spiritual conditioning, our political conditioning, our familial conditioning. You have to be open to receiving information from something that is outside of an archetype that you may have grown familiar with, you know, and you can understand that perhaps a lot of these conditions that have been placed upon you were not with full information or full understanding of what they were trying to experience either. You know, it's always important to understand when the ego wants to have its way, and we don't want to let the ego's control issues try and mandate or, you know, depend on a dogma or a lexicon in order to actually, you know, further its own spiritual development. Because believe it or not, the ego is a spiritual entity. You know, it is a character in a storybook. It's really only here for a temporary period of time, but it itself can actually develop and mature through this process as it merges with, again, the higher self or the higher awareness that is a healthy, balanced, and spiritual connection to the all. I think I said that right. That is what I would also recommend. If you do want to focus on opening your third eye, one of the most important things you have to understand is, yes, practice makes perfect, but also diversity of practice. Alright, I recommend stacking your efforts. I do not recommend trying to binge on binaural beats and try and do the same repetitive practice over and over again. It's not a situation where a person needs to have this all taken care of in an extremely repetitive and scientifically controlled environment. In fact, you need to be able to find the balance that works for you. Alright? Another thing you can also work with is understanding that the brain does have reactions to things, and this can be very helpful. You know, pay attention to things that can stimulate this part of your energy field by making sure that you pay attention to how the brain reacts. Obviously, things like crystals carry a lovely vibration, especially when you look at things of the amethyst, the selenite, and the quartz variety. Those are all fantastic for opening the third eye, for working and, you know, putting that energy in so it matches the energy of the crystal in the third eye. Aromatherapy can be very helpful as well, because aromatherapy can also help signal the brain or signal the energy systems to react in such a way to, you know, to actually facilitate, again, greater use with the third eye. Okay, and you can go with traditional correspondences, or you can find the ones that work for you. Traditional correspondences for this kind of psychic center would definitely be anything of the nutmeg variety, lotus, or any kind of perhaps essential oils that would also stimulate psychic faculties. Mugwort is absolutely fantastic. Lavender is great in incense or in oil form. So these things can help stimulate, get you into the mental availability for beginning the process. But none of these tools are going to do them on their own. It's not because they are a crutch or an external vehicle, but it means we must be working with them, not waiting for them to work on us. Alright, remember, the universe is not a microwave. You can't just slap a bunch of stuff together and call it a day. So I hope that you found this video helpful, everybody. I had a lot of fun making it. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. And if you did enjoy this video, please like, share, and subscribe. You know I appreciate it. I'll talk to you later.